Okay, Megan, we're up on Facebook and we're recording. So there's a couple new people here might not know Megan. She's been with the group for a while, active paddling, and she went on our first trip, and just the first one, right, to Switzerland?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna hear all about some great adventures in Switzerland.
Yes.
You're up.
All right. See my lovely screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So Switzerland in July of 2017. And I will totally admit that I went and scoured Facebook for the other people who went and took some of their photos as well. You can see I got some credits down there for them because I didn't have all of these photos. I actually lost a lot of my photos, unfortunately, but found a lot. We've got a lot of good stuff to look at. So it's basically a 10-day trip, right? We started in, well, obviously left the US, and then we started in Zurich. Didn't really spend any time in Zurich. Went straight to Lucerne, spent some time in Lucerne, Interlaken, Zermatt, and then back to Zurich to go home. Crammed a lot of stuff into 10 days, I'll tell you that. So Lucerne. Doug managed to find us, and Doug, you know, if there's new people, Doug was the one who, you know, runs Take It Outdoors Adventure, and he now lives in Switzerland with his wife and his kids. He did a really good job of finding some, you know, awesome hotels and places to go and see. But this was our cute little hotel in Lucerne. Nice little atmosphere they had going on there. And our inaugural dinner in Lucerne. I remember almost everybody's name. And I can't remember, there's a few I don't remember. But there's Doug and there's his wife Miriam, right? I think everyone else, John's on the call. Myself. I don't know if Becky called in or not. She was gonna try, but she lives in California now, so it's kind of early still there. But this is beautiful Lucerne. So this is the Chapel Bridge, connects the two sides across the river Ruith, which I'm sure I've pronounced incorrectly. Bridge actually was built in like the 1330s, 1333. It did catch on fire back in the 90s, so they've had to do some restoration work on it, but it is a very busy pedestrian bridge with cool artwork in the rafters. It's a little blurry because obviously it's a pedestrian bridge. We're snapping pictures as we're trying to walk across the bridge. And as some of these were damaged in the fire, so some have been restored, and then some other spots you can just see the fire damage that's there. But Lucerne's a really cool city, old city. There's an old wall, a lot of, you know, interesting things to see, and it's beautiful scenery just even from the city. It's right on a lake. Oh, look at this nice aerial view. We must be up on one of the walls or up on a hill somewhere to take this. But you can see it's got a, it's also, this bridge, Chapel Bridge, is the world's oldest surviving truss bridge. But it's pretty iconic for Switzerland, and there's some of their tourism pictures and whatnot. So I will say, and you could see, before I go to the next slide, you could see some of the beautiful scenery, all the mountains around. Lucerne is right on a lake. They've got a lovely path along there to go on. So while we were in Lucerne, we did a couple of things. We went for a ferry ride and went on a mountain, which I'll get to. And we also went to a transportation museum, which I will admit is probably one of the coolest museums I've been to and seen. So obviously I took this from their website itself, but you can see they've got the big planes there. They also have a fantastic area for the kids. You see they're playing on little model airplanes and whatnot. They also have like heavy equipment playground. So the caterpillars and the kids can play in the sand and dig with like construction equipment, which was just a really cool museum. Plenty of signs to get you around. This was at the museum. They had these two big walls of signs and highway transportation signs. And then an entire building of vehicles on these car elevators. You could just watch them go up and down, and you could actually pick which one you wanted to see. So you could pick it, and they would, like the factory would bring it down, and you could look at them a little closer in.
So like to your point, yes, it would be, if one person said approved, the other said approved the changes.
Does someone they realize that they're still, that we can hear them on their work call? I think they went on mute. And then they just have this giant, like a drill. I can't even remember what this is called. And they did use it to, I think, build, or it's a replica to use to build a tunnel. But you could see we're standing there, so you could see the scale and the size of that, I don't know, cutting tool. I don't know if but John, if you remember anything and want to pipe in, feel free.
It did tunnels. It did
No,
subway.
I think it did.
Tunnels for cars and trains.
Yeah. So then we went on to Mount Pilatus. So here's the lake I was telling you about that Lucerne is sitting on. And these are the ferry boats that you can take across the lake and get around to various areas. Oh, someone was nice. They said in the chat that it's probably from the Goddard Tunnel, which could be correct. I'd have to look it up. But so this is the lake, and you can see it was kind of an overcast day this day. I will say that this trip, even though it was in late July, it was actually a cold snap in Switzerland. So the weather was quite a bit colder than it normally would have been. But it made for beautiful views, though. You see all the fog. I don't remember which town that is, but as you're taking the ferry around the lake, you go past all of these places. And so we took the ferry to the Pilatus Bahn, the cogwheel train to go up the mountain. And I will admit, I am scared of heights. I had issues with this train ride, but it was all good. I just had to not look out the cliffside window, like over here. This is not my favorite part of the train ride right here. But you can see it's the steepest cogwheel railway in the world. It's a fantastic ride. You go through some tunnels. Sorry, I'm going backwards. We'll go through the train ride again. Because I'm scared of heights, I truly appreciated the fact that there was fog that day. Obviously, didn't make for the greatest scenery, but I appreciated not being able to see how far of a drop it was off the side of the mountain. So this worked well for me. And all along, as you go up, you reach a spot where there's cows along, and you could hear the cowbells tinkling. You couldn't always see them because of the fog. You could see here, as we get to the top, very foggy. At the top, you really couldn't see much of anything up here. But at this point, we're now at 7,000 feet at the top of the mountain. So you can see there's this nice trail, which is clearly closed. And I'm pretty sure it was closed because it is so foggy. Most of the trails that were at the top of this mountain were shut down for safety reasons. So we could just kind of walk around the platform and look around at what was available. So here, again, I appreciated the fog. I'm sure not everybody else did. But you can see there's nothing there, right? So you're pretty high up. This is, there's a visitor center right there, and there's a gift shop and a little restaurant and everything. So they had some nice viewing windows so that you could look out of. We just happened to unfortunately be there on a day when it was, visibility was pretty limited. And then we took the gondola ride back down. So we took the train up, and then you take the gondola back down, which, as you can see, as we got a little lower, the fog and the clouds lifted a little bit, and we were able to see quite a bit more. So it was a nice day. So that was Lucerne. Then we went to Interlaken.
Hold on, Megan. There's a
Yep.
couple questions about the Pilatus and the
Oh.
cog. You see them in the chat?
Yeah, I'm seeing it now. Okay. Hiking was actually, can you hike all the way up to the top? I don't actually know if you can hike to the top. There are hikes once you get to the top.
No, you can hike all the way up to the top
Can you?
from the beginning of the cog train.
Okay.
The path starts there, and it does make its way all the way to the top. I know Chapman has done it.
Oh, he would.
As far as the elevation, I'm not quite sure.
I mean, Lucerne's probably not that high, and if the top of Pilatus is at 7,000, I mean, you're probably looking at a gain of about that much, right?
Right, and it takes a couple of hours.
Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty it was a very steep, well, obviously it's the steepest one in the world, so it was a really steep train ride just to get up.
So it would be a very long hike then.
Yeah, and I'm sure it would be hard, yeah.
I would also recommend if someone wanted to go hiking up or down to bring their sticks for hiking.
Yes. Hi, Becky.
Hi, that was me, by the way, work call.
All
Sorry.
right. Yeah, so those were our first couple of days in Lucerne, getting acclimated to Switzerland and the time zone and, you know, seeing what we could see there. Then we went on to Interlaken. So it was a train ride, beautiful train rides there. I will say we actually took public transportation the whole time we were there, no private transfers or anything like that. But the train system in Europe is very good. I don't know how many of you have been to Europe or in other places, but their train system is actually very good and very accessible and easy to navigate. So of course we had lovely scenery as we were you know, taking the train from Lucerne to Interlaken. And this was our home base while we were in Interlaken, a lovely classic looking Swiss chalet. Really nice place actually, and pretty centrally located to town. So we walked everywhere we needed to go in town. And then you mean the train wasn't that far away once we, you know, arrived and when we were going to leave town. So here, this is what we spent several days in Interlaken, and we did quite a few things while we were here, right? So here's our home base in Unterseen. We went kayaking on Lake Brienz. We went to the Lauterbrunnen Valley. We went to Spitz, and there's a castle there we visited. And then we also went to Thun. And I probably mispronounced quite a few of those words, but Spitz and Thun were towns that we went to and each had like a castle that we visited. So this trip to Switzerland did have everything you could basically ask for in a single trip. Urban adventure, hiking, water with the kayaking, culture and history with the castles. So it was a really well-rounded trip. Another lovely view of town. And then this is Unterseen, and you can see there's a river that runs right through it, and the water really is this blue while we were there. I don't actually know why it's that blue. I'm sure it's the minerals and whatnot. I didn't really look into that, but it was this lovely shade of blue the whole time we were there. And again, this is basically kind of right downtown. So the river really runs right through the middle of the downtown area in town. And a lovely view. I think one of these was Jungfrau. This one might be Jungfrau, a mountain. I don't remember what the rest of them were called. And we were actually supposed to go, if you were to look at the itinerary on Meetup, we were supposed to go to Jungfrau on the top of the world, I think it's called. And we actually ended up not doing that because the weather was so bad. We could see the mountain was covered the day we were supposed to go. The mountain was just shrouded in clouds and whatnot. So that's actually why we ended up going to Lauterbrunnen Valley instead. The kayak trip I'll talk about in 1 minute. I see there was a chat question about that. Just a close-up view of the mountain. So there's on top of Jungfrau, there's, you know, one of those restaurant and, you know, the highest train station that you can get to see. So kayaking, you know, talking about Lake Brienz, we went kayaking. This was actually, we did it with another vendor there, a high tide kayak that runs tours and classes, etc. So we hooked up with them for the course, for the class, and we did one of their half-day trips. It was kind of like an evening type half-day paddle. And you can see though, as we're wearing our rain jackets and whatnot, again, the weather wasn't super great, but you know, it's still, when you go kayaking on the lakes like that and in the area, get a little rain and some clouds, provides a really nice atmosphere to see. So this is, I think we're just kind of starting out here. This was basically right where we put in over here and where High Tide Kayaks office is at. And then you see we all each had our own kayaks. No tandems here, single kayaks. Obviously, one of the ferry boats on the lake, getting people around. And again, the blue water, these are glacier-fed lakes. And if you recall from that map I showed, there was Brienz and Thun with a little connector in between. They used to be a single lake. Probably, I don't know, 10th century, I think it was. They split for whatever reason. I don't actually remember what happened to cause the split, but they did split. And Lake Brienz is like 20 feet higher than Lake Thun. So Lake Thun actually has a tendency to flood a lot, and it gets a lot of runoff. And I did read somewhere, and I didn't actually fact check this completely, but there was a note that in Lake Thun, the Swiss government actually dumped a lot of munitions from like World War II up through the 60s. So apparently there's several tons of munitions in Lake Thun, but yeah, so Lake Thun does flood quite a bit because Brienne dumps a lot of water in there, and then some of the runoff goes into there. So it was just a lovely day or evening out paddling. This is one of our guides, and I do not remember what their names are at all. We had 2 guides. And so we're just paddling around. This is relatively close to their put-in spot. There's like a little park right here. And then as you paddle around the lake, there's a couple of spots, and we didn't get to all of them, but there's like old ruins up on the cliffs and a few waterfalls to see. So this is a nice picture. I think we're pointing away from Brienne's on this one. Keep going backwards. There's John on our call. It's on the kayaking trip. And then again, just beautiful water. A little cold though that day. It was very cold. Did not want to fall in. Then we had to get our rain gear on at some point because it started raining on us. Yeah, here where so you can see it started to rain. At this point, the put-in is way back there behind us, so we're basically on the other side of the lake now. And then just a beautiful view, looking through that valley to towards Thun. And of course, Doug, Mr. Chapman hamming it up for the camera there. I think that's most of us in the group. Most of us went kayaking this day. There was an alternative for the people who did not want to go kayaking. There was a zip line adventure course type thing not far away. So a couple of the people actually went on the zip line course instead of on the kayaking trip with us. Someone put a joke in the chat. Sorry, I don't know if you guys saw that with Jungfrau. If you guys are looking at the chat at all. And then again, so yeah, that's another one of our guides. I don't know. The other one's taking the picture, of course. But this must be towards the end of our paddle. But it was several hours long. So it was a nice trip to get around out on the lake. Then we went to Lauterbrunnen Valley. This was a full day trip because we got on the train and went out there. So Lauterbrunnen Valley is often referred to as the Valley of 72 Waterfalls. It is a beautiful place. And again, poor weather, raining, a bit cold, but made for an awesome atmosphere to walk around and hike in. So you can see here we are in some town with a couple of waterfalls coming down. I don't remember the name of which town that was. We took a train out here. And you can see lovely countryside walk, another waterfall. Lots of waterfalls. I love waterfalls. This one you can tell we're hiking up to it. So we were able to get right up to the bottom of it here and then look out on the valley. Clearly it had been raining quite a bit. That little creek was going pretty strong there. Then you could see the snow up on the mountains up there. Very, very dark picture. A lot of atmosphere there with lots of waterfalls. We had lunch somewhere up in here. We managed to find a place open. It was good. And there we go. Just walked down the middle of the road. It's a valley. There wasn't a lot of traffic, so it was pretty good. We just kind of walked around. And Trommelbach Falls. This is in Lauterbrunnen Valley. And this is a series of subterranean waterfalls, right? So what we've got here, you can see it's a 10-step waterfall, and there's a funicular that goes up through the mountain that you can take up to a certain point, and then of course you can climb up the rest of the way and then climb back down. So if I remember correctly, we took the funicular up and then we walked back down. This actually dumps about 20,000 liters of water, I'm looking at my notes, per second. And it carries down melt from Jungfrau. the Young Lady Mountain that's in the area. There we all are hanging out and see the waterfall there coming down. I don't remember how much force it comes down with, but it's quite a lot. If we had video, it's actually very loud. It was really good. And then you'll see here, right? So you can see there's steps. So you climb up it and climb down on the steps. Again, not liking heights. Some of them were not my favorite steps to be on. Like whoever was taking this picture, I probably would not have wanted to be standing there. I'm standing nice and far away from the edge. And there's, yes, these steps I did not like, but we went up them. I don't know who all's up there, but we're getting very close to the top because now you can see some of the light in the trees up there. So we're almost up at number 10 there. Nice little picture. I love this with the red umbrellas. It's just a nice little picture there. Some color pop. And then the lights, right? So it kind of looks like it's on fire. So there's obviously some lights because the stairs will go into the mountain and come in and out. So they've got some lights on, so you get this nice glow effect and then a beautiful view out into the valley there. There we are at the top. And then we walked right down. Lake Thun. So this is where the culture and history part comes in. We hit a couple of castles while we were in these areas. Again, nice river going through the cities here. A lot of water in the Interlaken area. So here, we took the train from Unterseen to Spitz. So we got off the train and the train is up on a hill. Then you walk down into town. So this here is Schloss Spitz, so Castle Spitz. So that's where we went for the day. And then you see there's a nice little marina there. So the castle's from, I think it's about the 13th century. There was a fair going on in town while we were there. We lucked out. There was a nice, vendors, the Ferris wheel, little carnival. I don't remember why there was a carnival, but there was a carnival going on that day. I wish I lived there. It's such a nice picture. So this was the castle, clearly on a lovely day. They've got that nice courtyard, and then there's an old chapel and church right there. Some very nice views from inside. And again, right, 13th century, a baron somebody, I can't remember who started it. Some lovely medieval weapons. These are heaters, if I remember correctly. They're like ceramic or stone heaters to help heat the rooms. Stained glass. Excuse me. Always wonderful with the old tapestries up for display. I think this is an old picture of like the town with some encampments, or it's a war, right? It's 3 years ago. I don't actually remember what half of these things were for, and I didn't take pictures of all the signs. But then here you go, sleeping quarters, bathroom quarters. I'm glad things have improved since then. I can live without bathrooms like that. The bed looks a little short. It was good. Was there a question? Or did I just hear things? Nope. Okay. And just lovely views. You can see why, right? They'd have a castle there. Nice up on a hill. Some great views of the lake and the mountains. Nice little keyhole. And then Castle Thun, Schloss Thun. So this was another one. So we started in Spitz, and then we took the ferry to Thun. Spitz was like halfway down Lake Thun from Interlaken, or from Unterseen. And then Thun is on the far end of the lake. It's a nice walk through town. This is the castle up here on the hill, of course. Again, dates from like the 13th century. Torture, prison instruments. Guess, I don't know, the head and an arm, or both arms to lock them in. Just nice views. This one was actually up pretty high in town itself. I don't remember how high it was, but it afforded a nice, wide view of the city. and the surrounding area. Little shadow play with some soldiers. I don't remember what mountain range or which mountains those are, but we're up on the top of sort of the ramparts of Castle Thune here. And then just a lovely view of the city. Zermatt and the Matterhorn. Am I going through this? I'm going pretty fast, I think, actually. Is everyone good?
Megan, those
Yep.
castles, are they from like a feudal time? Or they're kings or lords? Do you know the systems in Switzerland?
I don't know if they were feudal because were things still feudal around the 13th century? I suppose they were. They were barons, if I remember correctly, who created them, but I don't remember if there was like a kingdom per se in that area at the time. I just like to look at all the pretty pictures and things. I'd have to look, but it was
I think they were all city-states at that time.
I think they were, because isn't that what Canton? Because Switzerland's broken up into cantons, right? And so it was each a region with the local lord or whatever. So I'm not sure that they're kings. Oh, Canton is a state, so each one had its section. And then Zermatt and the Matterhorn. So we got to take the Glacier Express train, which is a phenomenal train ride. And it actually goes, you can take it all the way from Zermatt to St. Moritz. And it's just a scenic train ride, right? They have the train cars with the big windows, full walls, and then windows up into the ceilings there. So you can get the nice panoramic view as you go through. I don't have any pictures really from the train ride itself. It was hard to get clean pictures and not blurry stuff. But like the other train rides, they were beautiful train rides to get up to Zermatt and through the mountain area. Because as you're going up to Zermatt, right, you're going to climb and go reach an elevation. So this is the train station as you get in. It's a lovely courtyard, nice horse-drawn carriages to get you to the hotels. So Zermatt is basically a combustion engine-free zone. Most of the vehicles there are battery operated. Keeps down right on the pollution. You don't want to obstruct the view of the Matterhorn. Emergency vehicles are allowed to have some combustion, and then if you have construction going on, you could get a permit. But basically, you just have these little battery operated little shuttles to get around the town in. This is what got us from the train station here. And then our nice hotel. It actually wasn't very far from the train station. Check in. I forgot to mention.
Yeah, you forgot to mention.
I did forget to mention the big thing that happened, right? So
Our guide abandoned us.
He did. He left us in Unterseen and Interlaken, and we had to get ourselves to Zermatt. Yeah, actually, while we were on this trip, Doug's wife, Miriam, was pregnant with their first child. And she went into labor while we were on the trip in one of our last days in Interlaken. So in the middle of the night, of course, he gets this phone call that she's going into labor. So he's trying to rush out to get home. He did not make it back in time for the birth. He did get there, but not in time. And so we got ourselves from Interlaken to Zermatt, which most of us have traveled enough. Like, again, we're taking public transportation, so it really wasn't that difficult to get around. And then another guide met us. I think she joined us on the train at some point along the train ride. She joined us, and then she was with us for our whole time in Zermatt. And then as we were going back to Zurich, she left us, and we met up with Doug again in Zurich. But yeah, the trip got a little exciting for a minute there with Doug having to take off and get home to his family. But we survived. We made it to Zermatt and are checking into our hotel. Yeah, oh yeah, that's our new guide right there. I can't remember what her name is, but she joined us somewhere along the trip, along the train ride. And then this was the beautiful view from our hotel in Zermatt. So this is obviously the courtyard, and then you just have a beautiful view of the Matterhorn right there. A little cloudy, but an excellent view of the mountain there. there is, I don't think I have pictures of this, but in Zermatt, and actually in Unterseen too, this was an option for people who like this sort of thing. And again, I don't like heights, so it was not me. Some people did actually go, is it parasailing or base cliff jump? I don't know. Anyways, they were jumping with a parachute from something. Not out of airplanes, but I think they were off the mountains or something like that. So a couple people did that. I don't think I actually have any pictures of that one. But if you like heights and you're into that kind of thing, that's also an option too if you want to be very adventurous on your Switzerland trip. There were a couple places where you could do that sort of thing. So while we were in Zermatt, we went up to the Matterhorn Glacier Paradise. So it's sort of a top of the mountain type of thing. I have no idea why the cow was there, but there's John with the Switzerland cow. To get up here, you actually have to take the gondola from in the city, from in Zermatt. You take the gondola up to one of the many stations they have on the mountain. And then you get on a cable car. And it's actually the highest cable car in Europe. So again, I was not a fan. I tried very hard not to look outside. But this was our cable car to get up to the Glacier Paradise. So you pick this up at one of the lower stations. And then this gets you all the way up to the top here. And you can see we're at 12,000 feet, almost 13,000 feet here. So nice and high. They have a, one of those ice palace things up there as one of the things you can do. So we took a little walk through the ice palace. Some nice ice sculptures in there. But the important thing was this, right? I think we took this from inside the cable car. So it's got that little tint going on. But this is the view as you go up the cable car and you're riding. You could just see forever up there. It was fantastic. That's another, just you see forever and ever up there. We must be on a platform here. And you can ski up there. You could basically ski 365 days a year up there. Now, it might be a bit icy. At that point, they're not getting a lot of fresh snow, but there were people up there while we were there doing the skiing. I'd be too paranoid. I'd like fall off the edge of a cliff or something, so I would not do it. But there were definitely people up there skiing while we were there. And then yes, people. These are people climbing up this mountain to get up to the top there. And you can see the trail that they're following. I think it's crazy, but hey, some people like that. And there we all are at the top on the viewing platform they've got up there. Again, rather chilly day. Then you can see in the back, right, those are the people again. There's that long trail of people going up. And then we did an alpine hike. It was a hard hike. I mean, you're at a pretty high elevation. It's a relatively short hike, but it was a hard hike. They rated as medium difficulty. Clearly, that's probably for people who are used to doing things at that sort of elevation. They say it should only take about 2 hours. I'm pretty sure it took us longer than that. I don't know, John or Becky, if you remember exactly how long it took, but it took us, I think, more hours than 2, for sure.
Definitely more hours than 2. And we ended up breaking into 2 groups.
We did, and we started to get worried that we wouldn't make it back in time to catch the cable car down, and then we'd have to hike all the way down, like all the way back into town. Because
the last group caught the last cable car down.
Yeah, we cut it close. We did cut it close. But you can see, so you start up here. We did it on the descent. We did not do the ascending hike. We did it down. So you start up here at 29,000 meters, and then you go down to Schwarzsee at about 2,500 meters, or I said 29,000 meters, 2,900 meters, right? Then you go down to about 2,500 meters. It's only 6.5 is 4 miles, maybe? Those 4 miles probably took like 3 to 4 hours. Now, granted, we took a lot of pictures too, right? There was a lot of stopping going on to look at things because you just had phenomenal views. This is basically kind of towards the beginning, and it's really like you're on like a lunar landscape when you start this hike. And for a good portion of it, it's like this. It's really a very otherworld type of environment. And of course, a lot of the glaciers, you know, have really receded, and there's a lot more land. We were there in July, so the weather and the terrain is really like what you see. It was really very dry. It hadn't been raining very much, so no ice. The glaciers had retreated actually pretty far, so you don't need special equipment, at least in July, to do this particular hike. It was from that perspective, it's pretty easy. Right, so there we go on our way off into the mountains. A nice climb up. I don't actually think that's our group. These were just some people that were ahead of us, and so we caught a picture. And there's the Matterhorn right there, covered in some clouds, but that's sort of the direction we're headed in. Some alpine flora, a couple of flowers. There was not much in the way of plants and whatnot on this hike. It was mostly what you see is the rocks and some of those, you know, glacier little ponds and lakes, but there wasn't a lot of wildflowers or anything like that. It is late summer, so I don't know if it would have been a little different if we'd been there a little earlier. Probably not would be my guess. Lunch break. So there you can see, right, the glacier is really receding, so you can see where the edges of it are. So we're in an area that's been uncovered, right, from the glacier, and then little ponds of water have collected. We did not go out on those glaciers, right? We stuck to the dry ground, basically. Nice close up. Lunch is over, time to go. Then you'd see this a lot, little glacier-fed waterfall, a water river going, and then just the lovely view of the mountains there. This was actually, we lucked out this day. It was one of the better weather days, so you could really see just forever while you were up there. And it was nice and sunny. The Matterhorn again. The Matterhorn, you know, kind of dominates the whole view while you're on the hike. It's pretty much always there. I think that was Vanessa on our trip. And then this is actually, we're kind of around the bend. You know, obviously we've passed the Matterhorn at this point, so we're kind of on the down, or really getting close to getting back to Schwartzy at this point. They provided us a nice little bridge. I could not find a picture of it, but somewhere along this hike, and John or Becky, you guys might remember, somewhere along the hike, there is like a restaurant or a hotel that is like way up on one of the cliffs that you can actually go to and you can hike to it. But it was way up there. I wish I could have gotten a picture of it, and I couldn't find it from Google, but you could see people like basically going up straight. It was basically like a vertical cliff wall, and there was just a path built into it, and people were climbing up to it, to this little restaurant way up on the cliffside there. Again, not for me, but people were doing it. And there's Schwartzy. That's our end goal. So clearly we still have a ways to go.
It looks like there's not very people on the trail with you.
There are not very many people on the trail. We probably ran into, I mean, there was a group towards the beginning. I don't know that we ran across more than 10 or 15 people total while we were on the hike. And there were some people who were going up, right, as opposed to down, because we were definitely on the down way. There were people who were really exercising themselves and going up, but it was, for the most part, we were by ourselves pretty much the whole way.
And Keith put in there about ice. No problems with ice on the trail?
Nope. No. In part, you know, being July and the glaciers have receded enough that for that particular trail, it's not a problem at all. I don't know if it's ever, like over the summer, I'm not sure if that trail ever has those kinds of problems. There's obviously a lot of other trails where you might have somewhere where their class is really hard, but this one was actually basically a packed gravel path for the most part. You can see a lot of people do go through it, but we didn't see very many people on the trail itself. And going down here were a lot of switchbacks. It's actually a lot longer than you think it is when you're standing up here and you're like, oh, there it is right there. Like an hour later, you're like, are we there yet? And this is where we were trying to make sure we got there in time to catch the last cable car. Otherwise, you're walking all the way down to town, which is down here. There are paths, right? You can do it, but I don't think any of us were particularly interested in that idea. It was one of those things, right? As you're coming on this trail, you think you're coming around and you've seen this, you've seen glimpses of it. So you're like, oh, it's really close. Then you come around the corner and there's like this big hill that you now have to walk up. And then you see the station and you're like, yes, we're there. And then you realize the station is closed and it's not the one you're looking for. And you're like, oh my gosh. But it was a beautiful hike. But we probably took 3 to 4 hours to do it, I want to say. It was nice, other than the elevation, I wouldn't say it was a difficult hike at all. I think it was more about the elevation itself. Then Zermatt, beautiful town. This was just gorgeous. I think this is Vispa is the name of this river, I believe, and it just runs right through the center of town. So you can see they have a nice walkway along the side, so you can just kind of walk along it the whole way into, through town from one side to the other. So of course there's the Matterhorn. Our hotel is down on the other side of town, but nice walking opportunities. Got to have lots of pictures of the Matterhorn. Trying to catch it clear, right, without all the clouds, but we never really did get a good day without at least some clouds around the top of the Matterhorn there.
Except the picture behind you.
Yes. I know. That was like from the hotel room. I think this was sunset, wasn't it? So for sunset one night, we managed to not have clouds, so we got a fantastic glow off of the mountain. That is a real picture. It wasn't doctored. That is just really how it looked that night. It was gorgeous. And then, of course, you got the cute, downtown touristy area of Zermatt with all the McDonald's signs, right? The Swiss Chalet look and all the shopping and eating places. Good restaurants there. Really enjoyed eating there. They had lots of options too. Being such a tourist town and having so many different countries there, they really had a lot of options from that perspective. Nice little fountain. So it's just like town square, right, as you're walking through. And then every day, I love it, the goats were, I didn't actually know this thing occurred, and then we saw them one day. So every day for like 6 weeks in the summer, there's a parade of goats through town. They do it in the morning, and then they do it in the evening. These are called the blackneck goats. They used to be used as like, the poor man's cow, and they were milked, but they don't actually put out that much milk. So they're not really used for that anymore. But they still herd them and they walk them through town and they keep them, and they're kind of, a tourist thing. But it was just so cute to watch them walk through town. And they're such cute looking little goats. Look at them. Their long hair. And then you'd see them out as you go, if you look outside of town along the mountains and on the hills, you can see them on their little rocks and jumping around like mountain goats would do. And see, they got their little bells on, they just walk through town. And then what the tourist office does, right? Like they have a kid, sort of escorts them, and then there's an adult with them to make sure nothing, I guess nothing happens. They just parade them through the center of town every day. And then this one, this is towards the end. I personally did not go on this particular hike. This was for those brave souls who don't mind heights, so it wasn't going to be me. I don't remember what the name of this hike is, but this is where it took them. A nice suspension bridge that they all walked across. I would not have gotten beyond this point. If I even got to the entrance of it, that would not have happened. But then you can see most of the group did go and do this hike. And you see that? And you can see through the bridge, like if you look now, I would not have done it. I would not have been able to do it. I tried once in Ireland to do one of those things, and I was blocking the whole line because I would not step on the bridge. I was like, I can't do it. And I can't remember. There was in July of 2017, there was a new like world's longest suspension bridge that opened in Switzerland. And I cannot for the life of me remember if this was that bridge or if this is a different bridge that was already there. But it's there, they walked across it, they all survived. It's good for them. And then another nice, you know, this was, you know, the Matterhorn, it's got a little fire going on around it. This might actually be sunrise. Oh, it could be sunset, I don't actually remember. But the sun was hitting it, so it looked a little bit like it was on fire there. And then yes, my background picture. This was a real shot. I don't, to my knowledge, like, I know there's that artist who's illuminating like country flags on the Matterhorn right now. I think this was just from the sun setting and hitting the mountain and reflecting off of the snow here. So that was our time in Zermatt. It was a fantastic few days there. I would definitely go back. And then our last day, Zurich. We met up with Doug, and apparently now we've decided we're lost in Zurich and need to figure out where we're going. I don't remember where we were trying to get to. I think we were just taking the public transportation somewhere. But the guys had to get out the map and try to figure out what we were doing. And a cow, I don't really know what it was with the cows. I don't know why there's this cow in the middle of the building sticking out. It was just an interesting thing to see. It's cute. And this was our final dinner. Our last night there. I don't know how to pronounce this. Zuchthauskeller, maybe? I don't know. But they had a nice little sign out. And then if you know the group, we have to have good places to eat and we have to have good beer to go with it. So here, we've ordered a beer that's gonna be set on fire. I don't remember why, but she's setting it on fire. This was a video, but I couldn't, someone else had the video and I couldn't download it from Facebook, so I just did a couple of screenshots for you guys. So you could see our waitress setting it on fire and swirling it around to get it going. Get a nice fire going. And then she poured us our beer, which then Doug, of course, drank. So he put it in this nice big cup for us. I think we actually passed the beer around, like everyone drank from the cup and we all had some of it. But it was a great time, a fantastic last night in Zurich. And there's our whole group again. We all survived. It was a really good time. Good group of people on the trip. So that was Switzerland with Take It Outdoors Adventures. Well, people have questions. I did talk to Doug this morning, and he did say he's actually thinking about running another trip next year for Switzerland. And he does actually have a site, if you wanna, that's Doug, with, I don't remember which kid, he has two now. So I don't remember which one this is. So he, you know, has it now a guide thing set up in Switzerland as well, and with a Facebook page and everything. So if you want to do, but he did actually mention that he is thinking about running another one next year to Switzerland. He didn't provide any details other than to say he was thinking about doing it in 2021. So if you're interested and want to go, apparently, you know, he might do another one. But it was a fantastic trip and I would totally go back. I've actually been back a couple of times to Switzerland. I also went one time in the winter, which was really cool too. Not as cold as I would have expected it to be. And you still do the gondolas and go up and whatnot. I'm not really a big skier, but it does exist. Or, you know, obviously you can ski there. And then they have these like toboggan slides, right? Or the, I don't really want to say like those skeleton crews where you kind of go down the tubes, but they have those things there too. Although I think that's a summertime thing. We did not do that while we were there. We should have. But that was Switzerland.
And as far as for Take It Outdoors Adventures, you only had to get yourself to Zurich, right? Everything else was planned by Doug and pretty much turnkey.
Yeah, and actually he hooked us up with a he had a travel agent work with, and I think that travel agent could help you book your flights if you needed some assistance with that. But really, yeah, you were kind of on your own to get your flight to get from the US to Zurich. But once you landed in Zurich, everything was pretty much, everything was taken care of. So it was really easy. You know, basically you just show up. And it was all good from there. It was too funny. One of the ladies who was on the trip with us, we had a bunch of text messages going beforehand because we had like a group chat set up and everything for people, and everyone was, you know, confirming itineraries and meeting up with people. Because some of the people were newer to traveling like that. And some of us aren't. So we were all just, you know, sharing stuff. It was just too funny because one of them, I think Nora, I should have put a picture of it. She took a picture of her suitcase because we were like, you can't pack more than a carry-on. Like, it's a week trip, a carry-on, that's all you can bring because you have to kind of carry stuff around. She rose to the challenge. She did it. She got everything into a nice little carry-on. So we all showed up with our nice suitcases. But yeah, it was great. You just showed up and Doug took care of everything. I see a question in the chat, the food. Personally, I think the food was really good. It is a bit, pretty much a, you know, think it's somewhat German, right? There's a lot of German influence there. So schnitzel, meat and potatoes type of thing. But, you know, some of the places we were at were very touristy. So you really did still have a lot of options. So if you really wanted something simpler, you know, Italy's not far, so you really had most options in town wherever we were. So it was actually pretty good. I don't recall anything like that really sticks out or was, you know, super ethnic, so to speak. Although Doug had these, and I don't even know what they were. These were chocolates that had liqueur in them, and really had a lot of liqueur in them. But they were delicious. I can't remember what they were, but they're you know, a chocolate delicacy there. But they were fantastic. And
How about languages, Megan? Any problems with communication or talking to people?
We didn't have any problems. I have found, you know, and even not just in Switzerland, but when I travel in general, if you're in the sort of bigger cities in some of the touristy areas, language is not usually a huge problem. There is a bit of a barrier, right? But you could usually get by with some basic English and just pointing. But I think everywhere we went, English was a pretty standardly spoken language there. Trying to think of what else.
The only place I ever found that they really didn't want to try and talk to you in English was Paris.
See, I never had that problem.
We did. But everywhere else, it was great.
Yeah.
And Rick, you asked about cost in the chat. I guess you missed that one.
Okay. So what did you want to know? I'm sorry, Jeff.
Rick and Judy asked about the cost.
Yes. So not including airfare, and airfare is probably, I don't know, a couple hundred, 800, depends on when you fly, right? So, and Jeff and Becky, or John and Becky, correct me if I get this wrong, I want to say, what, $2,000, $2,500? And I think that included most things, right?
Yeah, it included all the meals, hotels,
Right.
public transportation while we were there,
Yeah.
the gondola rides, the visit to the ice palace.
Right.
If you wanted to have a beer in the afternoon or a beer at night or a beer before breakfast, then that cost you some money. But other than that, it was pretty much covered.
We could go back in the meetup site and find what he listed it at too.
Oh yeah, good point. I think I have it up, don't I? Have it up on my screen. No, I closed it.
For Keith's question, there was a second trip that ran the next year, I think.
There's what? I'm sorry?
Keith was asking about if the next trip will be similar, and I know Doug did a second trip out there.
Oh, did he do a second trip out there?
At least he did one, I think the next year or later.
Oh,
You were
okay.
the first, the trial run.
Oh,
I think he'd been living in Switzerland less than a year when he ran yours.
probably. That sounds about right.
But there was a second one. Less people that paddle with us and some more people just that we didn't know.
Right.
I'm going to guess any trip he does out there is going to be pretty similar, but obviously you can adjust it as the group needs.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably think it would be pretty similar just because it offers, you know, that wide variety and sort of covers a lot of different things that you can do there. But I suppose if you wanted like longer kayaking, or something like that. Because there were a couple other things. I think he gave us an option to do a couple of things, and we were like, no, we didn't want to do them. And it was just, I don't think it was anything particularly fancy. It was while we were in Unterseen, there was just a few things to do, and we were like, oh, we'd rather go do this. And then obviously we make some changes on the fly based on weather, right? We decided the day we were supposed to go to, the top of the world on Jungfrau, the weather was just crappy. So we're like, it'd be like going to Mount Pilatus again where you can't see anything. So we're like, that would be a waste. So I think going to that valley, he had a backup plan. I don't think he, I didn't put him in a bind or any last minute, crunch to find something else to do. He already had some things planned, some alternatives available. So it was a nice, easy, quick switch up to just catch the train and go over there instead of going to Jungfrau.
And if I remember right, Doug always had options for you if you didn't want to go with the rest of the group. As long as you got to the town, then you could like do your own thing while everybody went for a hike.
Yep.
Okay.
When Megan didn't go across the bridge, she played somewhere else for the day.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. That's where, some people wanted to go do that parasailing stuff or whatever it was, and could do that. So he'd either have an organized one, or you'd be like, there would be a couple options if you want to go do something else. So yeah, I think the day they did the bridge, I think I just, kind of went around town and wandered around on my own, which I was totally fine with. Like, I was happy to do that. It's a great little town to hang out in.
I know Interlaken. I saw a special on TV about a week or two ago about Switzerland.
Okay.
A lot of adventure activities.
Yes.
Have pretty much anything you think of. They have hang gliding, bungee jumping, kayak.
Yep. Oh, they had everything there.
Canyoneering.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was wondering if Doug maybe ever did any like kind of like specific trips, like maybe like one trip for people who care more about like the cultural and sightseeing.
Right.
Another trip for people maybe who care more about the adventure. I don't know if that was like.
I don't know if he has anything like official set up that way, but he would definitely do that. So, if there was a group of people who wanted to go and do more of the adventure, right? Like, he would definitely be able to help organize and do something like that. I admittedly haven't really gone on to his site here to see what he's promoting as trips that he sort of already has outlines of. So I'm not entirely sure, but he would definitely be able to do those, and he likes doing that stuff too.
The trip Megan shared was the first trial run of going out there, and Doug has always said that he wants to just connect people with Switzerland. So his new program is Facebook or your Switzerland vacation. He will tailor a program towards you, whether you're a large group or a small group. He'll work with you.
Yeah, so pretty much everything was going. And honestly, I don't really think. I mean, I certainly had no complaints about the trip, and I like doing. If I'm going to do a trip like that, I do like to have, that variety and that mix of activities and action, and then doing some more of the cultural and seeing the the important sites to see in countries when I go and visit them. But I know some people obviously would want just like a pure action and go mountain biking and everything else. So those are certainly options.
I think it was neat that most people that went there were part of our kayaking program. And there's so much more than just a kayaking trip. You got a lot of interesting things, like you said, the culture, the adventures, and the history there.
Yep.
Beautiful mix of things.
Yeah, I thought it really was a good mix and a good balance. And you don't actually spend that much time traveling. The train ride might be a couple hours, but you usually knock that out in the morning, and then you have the whole rest of the day once you get someplace. So there was always, things to get going on. And then the train rides, they were beautiful rides. So it was nice. And I actually appreciated not being like in a bus or in a car. The trains, obviously, you have a little more freedom and movement to get up and walk around.
And the train system, you had a pass that was good for the whole week you were out there, right?
Yes, we had a travel pass or whatever it was that they call it to do it. I think the only thing we needed a special ticket for was the Glacier Express train. And I definitely want to go back and do that because I'd like to take it and go to like St. Moritz and go that direction on it too, and just sort of take it the whole way because it looks like a fantastic train trip. But yeah, I think that was the only one we needed a special ticket for. And that one, I think we had to have like a reservation. But again, Doug took care of all that. So we kind of had half of a train car basically for us. So it was nice. It was good.